Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I don't know if you heard the news or not, you probably have, but if not, President M. Russell Ballard has passed away, which didn't come as a surprise really, but I actually kind of am surprised that it happened so soon. We had recently been talking about this on the channel. Here's his X account and his last two before today. This is obviously a post done after he passed away, acknowledging his life and his service. But before that, his last two posts had been essentially about his health. And so we were wondering, is there very much time left? And I guess the answer was no. The last post that he did was on November 2nd. So that was just 11 days ago, when he talked about having to go to the hospital for a bit for respiratory issues and then returning back to work and doing work as he was able to do. So I was kind of surprised. I first found out about this from Mindy from the Temples of Jesus channel, and also one of my subscribers, Amy S. So I thank both of you for letting me know. This is a shock. It's a shock because he's been, for virtually my entire life, he's been in the quorum of the 12 apostles. So to see him go, it's very surreal and very strange. So what we're going to do, this is how I want to do it. I want to talk about President Ballard and the implications of what just happened here. We're going to look at the quorum of the 12 and the order of seniority among the apostles and look at different things. And then I want to give you some updates with what's going on in Iceland. This volcano, they're expecting an eruption. I don't know if it's this one particular volcano or not, or if it's going to be in some different location, but they're expecting an eruption. And as you can see here, this town is not looking too good, as they're anticipating this within like a couple days. We're going to look at that. We're also going to look at some significant developments in the war between Israel and Hamas, and some pretty key things that have come out over the last 24 hours that I want to share with you. And then to wrap it up toward the end of the video, I want to read part of President Ballard's talk called Hope in Christ, because I can't even remember. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but him and Elder Holland and Elder Cook, there was this thing where the three of them went to the UK because they had all served their missions in the UK. And they had there was a regional devotional and other things that were going on. And I was watching President Ballard talk, I think, to the youth. And it was one of these things where I can't find the source anymore because I don't think it's available, because it was like a temporary video that was put up on YouTube or the church website or something like that. And it's no longer available. But he said in that talk that I was listening to that he had put a lot of effort into this talk right here, Hope in Christ. And this was the April 2021 General Conference. So the trip to the UK must have been sometime after that, either later in 2021 or I think most likely in 2022. But I thought that was really interesting. He said that he had to really consult with other general authorities, other apostles, and to make sure that this was all doctrinally correct. And so I wanted to see what that was all about. I already did a video about this, but it's been a long time. And he does say some pretty interesting things in here in regards to the millennium of all things. So we are going to look at that. Okay, so first, let's go to my Second Coming timeline spreadsheet. So I have a few new entries on here. So we have President Ballard that passed away yesterday at age 95. On that same day, the Okinawa Japan Temple was dedicated. So that is we now have 186 temples that have been constructed. Coming up pretty soon, next month, we have the St. George, Utah Temple that's going to be rededicated. And then after that, in January, we're going to have the Lima, Peru, Los Olivos Temple and Orem, Utah Temple that are dedicated. So that's kind of where we're at. I also did an update in regards to column K right here. I've been tracking the Israel judicial overhaul protests, which have been a very significant thing going on this year. It started this year. There was talk of civil war because the nation was so divided. It's like a very significant thing that's been going on. And in fact, this may have to do with why this war is happening right now, that because of these protests, this was like a prime time for the enemies of Israel to attack. So I was wondering if these are still going on, and it doesn't look like they are. It seems like things have kind of been put on hold because now pretty much everybody, even those for and against, those that are against Benjamin Netanyahu, they're kind of setting this aside and they're focusing on the war. So I came to this conclusion based on this article from PBS talking about the fact that they've essentially diverted their attention. So for right now, it seems like these protests are over. There have been like some protests by the same group, but not about the judicial overhaul. It's more been about criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu in not getting the hostages back and stuff like that. So kind of like the same group, but not about the judicial overhaul. So anyway, that's a new update on here. Okay, so let's go to some of my spreadsheets here. Let's first read what it says on the church newsroom and then church news with Deseret News. Okay, President M. Russell Ballard dies at age 95. Prophet praises him as a man of conversion, commitment, and consecration. We are saddened to announce that President M. Russell Ballard, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, has died. After a recent brief hospital stay, he returned to his home where he attended to duties as he was able to before passing away at approximately 11:15 p.m. on Sunday. I find that a little bit interesting because that's just before midnight. And I don't know that this is any sort of sign, but a lot of times when we think about the second coming, we think about the final 1,000-year period of Earth's temporal existence, the 7,000 years, and it being like a day. You know, the 7 days of Earth's existence, days according to God's time, because a day in God's time is 1,000 years here on Earth. So it's common to hear terms like the 11th hour when talking about the time in which we're in right now, just before the millennium. So I just thought that was just interesting. That's all. Okay, surrounded by loved ones. He was 95. President Ballard became an apostle on October 6th, 1985. He was announced as acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles on January 16th, 2018. So, of course, that's when President Nelson became president of the church. Okay, let's move on. President Ballard had busts of 3 renowned church leaders in his office: church founder Joseph Smith and his brother Hiram, President Ballard's great-great-grandfather. Now, I knew that before. I don't know if you did. If you didn't know it, put it in the comments. I'd be interested to know if that's news to you. But yeah, Hiram Smith's great-great-grandson is President Ballard, and he just passed away. So that's kind of interesting right there. So church founder. So these are the busts that he have in his office: Joseph Smith, Hiram Smith, as well as Hiram's son, President Joseph F. Smith, who was the faith's sixth president. Their legacy on Christian discipleship, which of course includes the martyrdom of Joseph and Hiram in 1844, motivated President Ballard until his dying days. Quote, "When I came to realize who they were and who I was, it was unbelievable. I am constantly aware that I have a duty just by virtue of the fact that I have a connection. I hear them saying all the time, 'Get with it, do something worthwhile, get going, boy, don't just sit there.' They are doers. They had to be doers." So it seems like he's received visits from them pressuring him to get with it. I wouldn't be surprised if he has literally, had some experiences, whether dreams or times when the veil is thin. I would not be surprised if he's like talking about real experiences here. All right, continuing. President Nelson and conversion, commitment, and consecration were in President Ballard's blood. Can you imagine? Okay, sorry. President Nelson said conversion, commitment, and consecration, quote, were in President Ballard's blood. Can you imagine? We had the privilege of sitting beside a man who is the great-great-grandson of Hiram Smith. No, that's crazy. And Joseph Smith was his great-great-uncle. Every day I feel a debt of gratitude for that privilege of associating with a direct descendant of those respected and revered leaders. He's got that same integrity that they had, end quote. You know, just the fact that we had a descendant of the Smith family in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, I wonder if that's some sort of thing, because now I don't believe that there are. I'm sure that this article would have mentioned it. I haven't heard of any of the other apostles being related to Joseph Smith or Hiram Smith or the Smith family. So maybe that in itself is kind of a sign. I don't know. I would have to do some other kind of research into this. Like, I doubt that we've always had someone from the Smith family in among the 15. But, we have had, for example, let's go to this spreadsheet we're about to look at. We have had Joseph Fielding Smith. I'm sure, I'm not, you'll have to let me know in the comments below. I'm sure George Albert Smith was related to them. And then Joseph F. Smith. Dang, I'd have to put together some kind of timeline. I guess that's what I'm going to be doing here within the next few days. It's probably going to be monotonous and long, but that's what I do. That's what gives my channel value. So Joseph Smith, and then a little while later, Joseph F. Smith, and then George Albert Smith, and then Joseph Fielding Smith. And Joseph Fielding Smith passed away in 1972. And then it said that M. Russell Ballard became an apostle in 1985. So I'm gonna have to do that and see like how continuous in church history have we had continuous like members of the Smith family within the 15. I don't know. We'll see. Let's get back to the article. In his final general conference address given on October 1st, 2023, he spoke of the prophet Joseph Smith and of his eternal role in restoring the gospel of Jesus Christ and of the blessings therein. Let's see. President M. Russell Ballard was a missionary in the British mission from 1948 to 1950. That does not even look like him. I can't even equate the two as being the same person, but it is. All right, continuing on. That also does not look like him in my mind, I guess, because I just have a really rigid idea in my mind, a very solidified idea of what he looks like my entire life. Okay, his wife Barbara passed away on October 1st, 2018. So that was the first year of President Nelson's presidency. That's kind of a key year in the life of M. Russell Ballard. He became the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles in that same year. Later in the year, his wife passes away at age 86. She faced a long battle with some health issues, including Alzheimer's, with her characteristic grace and sense of humor. Okay, now that's the President Ballard that I know right there. Okay, that's it for that article. I had another thing I wanted to read from this one from Church News. Okay, I think there was just like one or a couple things here. Okay, we'll zoom in. His duties as a general authority took him to the far corners of the earth. Quote, there are not many places I haven't been, he stated. He dedicated 2 temples as houses of the Lord. He visited with Syrian refugees in Europe, shook hands with U.S. presidents, represented the church in front of national and international media, spearheaded projects that would transform the operations of the church, offered counsel to multitudes, and ministered one-on-one to members and missionaries, all while fulfilling his favorite role as husband, father, and grandfather. And that's the thing. I wish I had. I kind of attempted to do this, but it's going to just be too hard. I wanted to try and track all the times that the apostles in the first presidency have met with people outside of the United States, because they have gone a lot of places, including places where we don't have missionaries. I don't think that missionary work is limited just to young adults that are serving their 2-year or 1.5-year missions. It's obviously one of the primary roles of the apostles, and they have gone to places that are inaccessible to the church for typical, standard, conventional missionary work. Let's go here. Look at this. President M. Russell Ballard of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints preaches in Old Market Square in Nottingham, England in 1949. That is crazy. That's such a cool picture. That's so cool. There's him and his wife, and that's nice. She's pretty. There she is. 2017, just a year before she passed away. And then it has like pictures of all the different places he's gone. Here he is meeting with the Pope. Again, there's not going to be a time that we have regular missionaries in Vatican City, but we have had this like high level contact between our church and the Catholic Church, and specifically with the Pope, the Pope himself. Due to several of his close personal relationships with individuals from different faiths, a meeting was arranged between President Ballard and Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Secretary of State for the Vatican, and the Pope's close associate, at Vatican City in October 2017. Now, this is not 2017. That meeting served as an important precursor to President Nelson's meeting with the Pope in 2019. And here you have it right here. It's President Nelson, 2019. That was the year that the Rome, Italy temple was dedicated, right? Rome, Italy. Yeah, March 10th of 2019. That's when that happened. So it was during the same visit. And I knew that. I just had to make sure. That meeting served as an important precursor to President Nelson's meeting with the Pope in 2019. President Ballard recalled of that historic meeting, quote, "The embrace of the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Pope of the Holy Roman Apostolic Church was a wonderful moment," end quote. President Ballard's legacy. President Ballard was a great proponent of the simple truths of the gospel of Jesus Christ. In a church news podcast, he commented that his children engraved "Keep it simple," quote unquote, on the back of the headstone he will share with his dear wife, Barbara. Quote, "I'm a great advocate of keeping it simple because simplicity is powerful. Complexity is dangerous. I think Lucifer is the master of complexity, and the Lord is the master of simplicity. The gospel is simple, and it's simply beautiful," he said. I totally agree with that. And then here's the last thing I want to read. In October 2023 General Conference, President Ballard related that his eyes were dim and he was unable to see the teleprompter. Nevertheless, in what would be his last General Conference talk, which I wondered about, I know that a lot of you wondered about, President Ballard relayed a message full of love for the prophet Joseph Smith and for the Savior, Jesus Christ. Quote, "I leave you my witness and testimony that I know that Jesus is the Christ. He is our Savior, our Redeemer. He is our best friend." So here he is. It looks like that's his family. President M. Russell Ballard and his sister Barbara Bowen Ballard with their children and grandchildren. So it's, man, it's the end of an era, and it's so hard for me to wrap my mind around because he's always been there, literally my entire life, except for like when I was an infant. He's always been there. This is wild. So what happens next? Okay, so let's look at this first. Let's look at the line of seniority, or however you would call it. Let's see, right here. So here is M. Russell Ballard. He is third in line, or he's the third most senior apostle. President Nelson is the most senior, and then after that, it's Dallin H. Oaks, and then after that, it's M. Russell Ballard. Okay, so if you don't know, this is how it works. I'm sure most of you know. If you didn't know, put it in the comments below. I like to know if, like, when I bring stuff like this up, if it's teaching anybody anything, or if they already know. If you go to the Wikipedia article, I couldn't find anything very easily on the church website, but I know that this is right. Presidents of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Okay, so M. Russell Ballard, he was acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. So what does that mean, and who's going to be the next one? Okay, let's read what it says here. President of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles is a priesthood calling in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church. Oh, that reminds me, by the way, I had actually, this is really weird for me to say, I had interviewed, let's see, Linda L. Booth, with an E at the end. Oh, oops. Give me a second. I'm not sure why it's not pulling up. Community of Christ. Here we go. I did an interview with the former president of the Council of the 12 Apostles of the Community of Christ. That was earlier this year, or it was 9 months ago. Yeah, earlier this year. Oh, and there's a rocket attack going on right now. Wow. Getting sidetracked all sorts of ways. This rocket attack is taking place in the north. So it could be Hezbollah. It could also be Hamas, because Hamas apparently has some presence and assets in Lebanon, which I didn't know before just a few weeks ago. So there you go. Last I checked, all the towns that are within 5 kilometers of the Lebanese border have been evacuated. And just eyeballing it, it looks like these are probably within 5 kilometers. So there really shouldn't be anybody there except for potentially troops. Okay, anyway, Community of Christ, they're the ones that have the Spiral Temple in Independence, Missouri. They don't own the original temple lot. That's the Church of Christ temple lot. But the Community of Christ, they're basically the next largest splinter group off of the church. And I interviewed their former president of the Council of the 12 Apostles. So if you're interested in watching that, as I'm wearing a Mennonite shirt, Yoder, Kansas, I'll put the link for it in the description below. It was a very interesting interview. So that's their former president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, or sorry, they call it Council of the 12 Apostles. But let's get back to this. So normally, the president of the Quorum of the 12 is the most senior apostle in the church, aside from the president of the church. Okay, so that's normally how it goes. The most senior apostle aside from the president of the church himself. When the president of the church dies, it is the president of the Quorum of the 12 who becomes the new church president. Okay, so that's how it works. There's no, like President Nelson has said before, there's no politicking, there's no anything like that. It's set. There's no way that you can change it. It's whoever is the most senior at the time. Okay, the current president of the Quorum of the 12 is Dallin H. Oaks. Since Oaks is a counselor in the first presidency, M. Russell Ballard is currently serving as acting president. Okay? If the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, is asked to become a counselor in the first presidency, the president of the quorum retains that title, but is not numbered among the 12. And the most senior apostle who is not in the first presidency is named as acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. The acting president assumes all of the duties that would normally rest upon the president of the quorum. The title of acting president was first used in 1918 for Roger Clausen. The position has also been used during times of infirmity of a president of the 12. For example, Howard W. Hunter was acting president for the infirm Marion G. Romney from 1985 to 1988. So that's interesting. I didn't know that. Boyd K. Packer was the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles from 1994 to 2008, when Gordon B. Hinckley and Thomas S. Monson were presidents of the Quorum, but also in the first presidency. On January 16th, 2018, the church announced that due to the call of Down H. Oaks as a counselor in the first presidency, M. Russell Ballard would serve as acting president. Okay, so then they have a list of all the presidents, not acting presidents, but presidents of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. The first one, Thomas B. Marsh, was excommunicated for apostasy. Then after that, it was Brigham Young, Orson Hyde, and then so on all the way down to here. And again, on this table, you don't have M. Russell Ballard because he was not the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. He was acting president. So the president has been Dallin H. Oaks ever since when President Nelson became president of the church. And before him, it was President Nelson. It looks like for about 3 years, 2015 to 2018. And before that, Boyd K. Packer, Thomas S. Monson, Gordon B. Hinckley, and so on. So that's how that goes. So with that in mind, if we come back to this spreadsheet, I don't know that there would be like any sort of reorganization of the first presidency. I would assume that, and it is an assumption. I don't know. If you know, let me know. But I think that the first presidency would just stay the same. I think it's only ever really reorganized when a member of the first presidency passes away, but I could be wrong about that. So what I would expect to happen is Jeffrey R. Holland become the next acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. And then if Dallin H. Oaks was to pass away, then he would become the actual president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Henry B. Eyring is actually, this is including M. Russell Ballard, not taking into account that he's passed away, but he was in the 5th spot as far as seniority goes. So it's going to be interesting. I think it's, all but certain that Elder Holland is going to become President Holland, which is really good because there's been so many videos where I've mistakenly called him President Holland. Then I have to correct myself. It just for some reason has just naturally come to me to call him President Holland. But it looks like now he will be President Holland. There's also some other interesting things to look at here. So I filled out this spreadsheet more than what it was before. It originally, it was just tracking presidents of the church. I wanted to know, how long they had lived and if they had served in the military in column N, their careers in column O, and stuff like that, and how long they'd served as president of the church and all that stuff. I later included the number of temples that they've announced. President Nelson, by far, has announced the most. After that, it was President Hinckley with 78. After that, it was actually President Monson with 45 in the 3rd spot. And then Spencer W. Kimball with 31. Okay, but I wanted to... I originally had Dallin H. Oaks, Henry B. Eyring, and M. Russell Ballard on here too, because I wanted to kind of think about them as well. And then for this video, I filled out all the rest of it. including how long they have been an apostle. That's what this is, time in office, because this applies not just to apostles, but also all the presidents of the church. So I'm just calling it time in office. And then what their calling or position was before they became an apostle. So this is where things get a little bit interesting, to me anyway. Okay, so with our current 14, okay, excluding President Nelson, our current 14, most of them have been were in the presidency of the 70 before they became apostles. Okay, so this is before apostleship. What were they? Most of them were in the presidency of the 70. Elder Suarez, Gong, Rasband, Anderson, Christofferson, Cook, Uchtdorf, and President Ballard. He was in the presidency of the 70. Okay, and then you have the next largest group would be those that were just simply in the first quorum of the 70. Elder Renland, and President Eyring, and now, well, I'm not going to say it yet, and Elder Holland. They came just directly from the quorum of the first quorum of the 70, not the presidency of the 70. And then you have Elder Stevenson that was presiding bishop. Okay, so he's kind of unique in that respect. And then you have these two that weren't even general authorities before they became apostles. Elder Bednar, who at the time was president of BYU Idaho, and then President Oaks, who at the time was justice of the Utah Supreme Court. And everybody knows that story, how it was hard for him to step away from that career to accept that call, but he did. Now, I looked at the presidents of the church, and as far as I could tell, none of them had been a general authority before being called to the apostleship, except for Gordon B. Hinckley, assistant to the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, when that used to be a calling. President Nelson, he was, I can't remember the name of he was like the president of the Sunday school for the church. But then there was a few years that went by between that and when he became president, or when he became an apostle. So that's not what he was doing immediately before he became an apostle. So that's why I have this blank. So I'd have to go through and look at all the apostles to see, just what really stands out. But this is what I have so far. The ones that kind of stand out are President Oaks and Elder Bednar, because they were not general authorities before they became apostles. So who knows who's gonna be called next to fill the vacant seat left by President Ballard. But if it's somebody that comes from the presidency of the 70, I have that pulled up right here. It could be one of them. I don't know. I can't say that I'm all too familiar with any one of them. Let me know if you are. There is Patrick Kieran, Carl B. Cook, Jose A. Teixeira, Carlos A. Godoy, Brent H. Nielsen. That'd be interesting to have a Nielsen. I know that President Nelson is Nelson, but that'd be interesting. Paul V. Johnson, and then S. Mark Palmer. So I guess any one of them could potentially be called to be an apostle. If it's somebody from the presiding bishopric, then we have these three. Gerald Cossé, I think that's how it's pronounced, W. Christopher Waddell, and L. Todd Budge. Or it could be somebody from the 70, which I don't have that pulled up, and we're not going to go through all that. Or it could just be somebody completely out of nowhere, just not even a general authority right now. So anything's possible. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't think I read the part that said, sorry, I think I missed this. Let's see. 47? No. 47? Let me zoom out. Yeah, there's one thing I don't think I read here. An interesting fact. Longest. Okay, here we go. I didn't read this. President Ballard served for 47 years as a general church leader. At the time of his death, he was the church's longest serving living general authority. So that's another interesting factoid there. I didn't know that. Okay, now let's take a look at this. This is a spreadsheet that I have tracking primarily changes in the first presidency and their ages. And we had noted before that, when you go back in time, I have all these ages color coded. So, you have Joseph Smith over here, 26 years old. So if you're in the 20s, it's gray, and he was the only one ever in his 20s. 30s are in this magenta color, 40s purple, cyan for 50s, green for 60s, yellow for 70s, orange for 80s, and then red for 90s. So the first member of the first presidency that we've had that was in their 90s was Wilford Woodruff. He passed away at 91. And then you go through time, and there's like a mix, there's a mix. It starts to get more orange and yellow and red as time goes on until we come to the current day, where we have everybody in their 90s. President Nelson, President Oaks, President Eyring, but also including, up until he just passed away, and sorry, I didn't update this because it was a while ago, including President Ballard, the acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. So this was the first and potentially only time that we've had all four of these in their 90s. So that's something interesting to note, and potentially a sign. I don't know. I think it's significant. Also, I have this spreadsheet where I keep track of, this is similar to my other phrase tracker, but this is speaker specific. It started out with me just wanting to compare all presidents of the church and how many general conference talks they used these words and phrases. And you can see that President Nelson really stands out, both for use of the term second coming. He's in the number 1 spot for that. And then if you take all these total, he's also in the number 1 spot for that, excluding the first 4 presidents of the church. Okay, the only other one that comes close is Ezra Taft Benson. So that's interesting to note. I've shown this before on the channel. I've updated it with this last general conference. Now this is up to date. And as we look at the other 14, M. Russell Ballard was actually toward the top of talking about the second coming, or these kind of like second coming terms, with 22. And currently, Henry B. Eyring is at the top with 25 total, if we're looking at column I. So now another thing is, not all of them have been general authorities for as long as other ones have been. So it's not like necessarily comparing apples to apples, but this is how this plays out if you were to put it on a tracker like I have right here. So this is interesting to note. Okay. And I think that's pretty much it for that. Okay. Now, before we get into that talk that I was telling you about, Hope in Christ, where President Ballard said that he had spent a lot of time putting this talk together and researching for it. Let's just do a quick update on what's going on in Iceland, and then after that, Israel. Okay, so this is kind of concerning and not the type of thing that you want to see in your city or town. Large cracks are now seen emanating steam in the town of Grindavik, as experts say the chance of a volcanic eruption is high. Grindavik, I've already shown this before, but in case you missed it, it's a small town in Iceland in the southwest, and it has a population of 3,300. Okay, let's go over to Google Earth. I have a yellow person icon right here. I may change this to something else later, but this indicates that the entire town has been evacuated. Seems like there's been a lot of that going on this year. Entire towns being evacuated, and this is the most recent one. So they're registering all this activity primarily through earthquakes, but now also cracks in the earth and stuff like that, indicating that an eruption is probably going to happen pretty soon. They don't know exactly where. There is this volcano over here called, oh goodness, Fragadalsfjall. Okay. And this is not too far away from Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland. And so all eyes are just kind of on this. I've tried to find out just how dangerous this is, because there's a lot of attention being given to this volcano or this potential eruption, a lot. So, but I can't quite understand why, other than just the number of earthquakes. I haven't been able to find anywhere that says that it's like a super volcano or anything like that. So I don't think that's to be expected. Volcanoes, they do disrupt things. Obviously, it could destroy, if the eruption is close to here, it could destroy this town. Who knows? And then there's, of course, ash. Whenever there's a bunch of ash that's thrown up into the air, it causes problems for aviation and for navigation, because volcanic ash, ruins airplane engines. So anyway, but I guess if everybody else is keeping an eye on it, I will too. We got this from ABC News. More than 2,000 earthquakes were recorded in about 48 hours, including 1,000 in a 12-hour period on Sunday, the Icelandic Meteorological Office said in a series of updates. More than 20,000 quakes have shaken the area since late October, officials said. So, okay, yeah, that's a lot. That is a lot. Here's some cracking right here in a bench that used to be right there, yes. Officials declared a state of emergency near Mount Fagradalsfjall volcano on the sparsely populated Reykjanes. I don't know if it's Reykjanes or Reykjanes Peninsula. About 37, this says 3,700 instead of 33. About 37 residents of a nearby fishing town, Grindavik, were told to begin evacuation on Friday, according to the Department of Civil Protection and Emergency Management. Another big crack right there. The quakes have been ongoing in the region for several weeks, but officials said on Friday they had identified an underground magma formation or intrusion. The deformation associated with the magma had slowed within the last 24 hours, officials said Sunday. Quote, "This can be an indication that magma is moving closer to the surface. New models will be run as soon as new data comes in to update the model," officials said in an alert. At this moment, quote, "At this moment, it is not possible to determine when or where an eruption might occur," the lagoon said in a statement posted on Monday. So if you know better about this, let me know, but they don't know when or where, because again, there's this nearby volcano right here. Isn't that where it would happen? Or is there a possibility that there'd be some other location that it erupts? I don't know. If you know better, let me know. But it's been hard for me to kind of understand what's going on here. All the particulars. Just a couple more things. Iceland braces for volcanic eruption as Prime Minister reassures residents. Iceland's Prime Minister has sought to reassure the nation as it braces for a volcanic eruption, and the Reykjanes, I'm going to say Reykjanes, Peninsula continues to be hit by hundreds of earthquakes. Between midnight and early afternoon on Monday, The Icelandic Meteorological Office detected about 900 earthquakes as seismic activity between Sundinhurkur and Grindavik in Southwest Island continued near the capital, Reykjavik. In recent days, a magma tunnel has formed under the peninsula, stretching out into the sea. It comes after thousands of earthquakes have been recorded in recent days amid warnings of the significant likelihood of the Fagrajafal volcano erupting within days. So this one's saying that it would be at that volcano. That's where the eruption would happen, according to this. All right, whatever. Here's another, like a map showing you the different places. In the past 3 years, there have been 3 eruptions on the Reykjanes Peninsula near the Fagradalsfjall volcano, the most recent of which was in July 2023. But all previous eruptions have been away from infrastructure or populated areas. Before the first eruption in 2021, the peninsula had been dormant for 8 centuries. Okay, so dormant for 8 centuries and then 3 eruptions since 2021. And now I guess this would be the 4th. And again, but all previous eruptions have been away from infrastructure. But what, this one is close to it? Is that because... I don't know. I have no idea. Maybe the other ones... Okay, I'm not going to pretend to know. Okay, so video. Okay, cracks. We were just looking at that. Here's like a drone view of a major crack. Drone view of Nisvigur Road west of Grindavik. And then let's look at this one. A large crack appeared in the center of Grindavik, Iceland. Looks like that's the same one, just from a different angle. All right, so we'll have to keep an eye on that and see what happens. All right. Now this dramatic scene. Israeli soldiers in this. Let's read about this. IDF soldiers share photo in conquered Hamas Parliament. All right, so this is Hamas's quote unquote government or parliament room, which looks like a set made by high schoolers for a play. IDF soldiers on the Golani brigades shared a historic photo on Monday showing the Israeli flag inside the Hamas Parliament building in Gaza. In the moving picture, the team of soldiers can be seen proudly waving Israeli flags in the terrorist organization's Legislative Council building. So this seems to be a pretty big development. I mean, maybe not like tactically or strategically, but maybe more symbolic more than anything. But I mean, I don't know. But I guess this is what it normally looks like when everything's quote unquote peaceful and Hamas is running the Gaza Strip. And it appears that this is supposed to be the Dome of the Rock in the background here. And this is what it looks like now that the war has started and the ground invasion taking place and Israel is in the Gaza Strip. All right, let's read some more. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant completed a situational assessment in which he emphasized the progress of IDF soldiers in fighting in Gaza. Quote, "The IDF soldiers work according to a plan and carry out the missions with precision, lethality, and in coordination between the air, sea, and land forces using precise intelligence. There is no power..." Okay, now look at this. "There is no power that Hamas has that is capable of stopping the IDF. The IDF is advancing to every point. Hamas has lost control of Gaza. Terrorists are fleeing south. Civilians are looting Hamas bases, and they have no confidence in the government." So, yeah, it seems like they've made some pretty good progress if all that is true. And pictures like this don't help, as far as the psychology of the enemy of Hamas. It's a victory for the IDF. IDF breaks Hamas effectiveness. IDF attacks have broken the effectiveness of 10 out of 24 Hamas battalions. Okay? So who knows exactly what that means, the effectiveness, but that sounds good. So it's approaching half. Almost half of the Hamas battalions have had their effectiveness broken. Okay. For the first time since the start of the war, the IDF on Monday provided its official estimates of the size and makeup of what Hamas's forces were on the eve of the war, which started on October 7th. In addition, my highlights got messed up. That's okay. I know what I was going to read. According to the IDF, Hamas started the war with 30,000 men who were split up into 5 regional brigades. Okay, 5 brigades made up of 24 battalions, which were further split into 140 companies. Each battalion had around 1,000 plus men. Okay, so you get that. 5 brigades, that's like the larger unit. And a brigade is made up of battalions, and they have a total of 5 brigades, a total of 24 battalions split up between those 5 brigades. And then split up between the battalions and the brigades, 140 companies. A company is basically like the base unit of an army. Okay. So anyway, that's kind of interesting to see the breakdown and see what size of force they have. But the only thing really to remember, I guess, would be 10 out of 24, almost half. Okay. Let's move on. This is another significant update as of today. Israeli forces at gates of Gaza's main hospital with hundreds trapped. So the hospital, if you're new to this is where Israel says this compound, including underneath the hospital, which is where the tunnels are and the command centers. This is like the command center for Hamas. This is like the big thing that they want to capture. So Israeli forces at gates of Gaza's main hospital. They're there now. Israeli forces have reached the gates of Gaza's largest hospital as hundreds of patients, including dozens of babies, remained trapped inside. Yeah, because it's been running, even though, okay, I'm not going to criticize, but I don't know what I would do in this situation, so I'm not going to criticize, but I think it's well known that this is like the primary target of the IDF right now, is to take out not the hospital, obviously, but Hamas operating underneath the hospital. So now the army's there, and I don't know, it's not going to be good. There's going to be fighting. Here's a map of the progress of Israel invading the Gaza Strip. And it looks pretty similar to what we've seen before on other maps. The Guardian is saying that they're getting this from the Institute of the Study of War, but they've basically created their own version of it. And here is Al-Shifa Hospital. This is the one in question. And as you can see, it looks like Israel has advanced to this point and are really close to, I guess, clearing it. And that's going to be a major victory in this war. So today, the big news, they have the Parliament building or whatever, and they're at the hospital at this point. The Israel Defense Forces have repeatedly said Hamas operates from bunkers underneath Shifa. This has been denied by Hamas and hospital staff. UN officials and rights experts have stressed that hospitals should never be used by Palestinian armed groups to hide, nor should those claims be used by Israel as a pretext to attack them. The Palestinian Red Crescent, which operates the facility, said Israeli forces were stationed nearby and that preparations were being made to evacuate 6,000 patients, medics, and displaced people. All right, so there's, I guess, a little window here in which they can clear the building. However, fighting could block their escape. The IDF published footage online on Monday that it said showed a militant with a rocket-propelled grenade launcher inside hospital grounds. And I saw that video. I don't have it up, but I should have pulled that up. As the war entered its 6th week, fresh clashes on Israel's northern border with Lebanon and more U.S. strikes on Iran-linked militia targets in neighboring Syria renewed fears of a wider regional conflagration. Whatever. And it seems like that's what's going to take place. I have another thing to show you in regards to that. As far as like having a second front on the north with Hezbollah. Pressure is growing on Israel to agree to a ceasefire as allies, including France and the U.S., expressed growing concern at the death toll in Gaza. More than 11,000 people have been killed, about 40% of them children, and more than half of the population has been made homeless, Palestinian authorities have said. Now, I don't know if anybody knows if that's a correct number, because that's being provided by, Gaza officials. So they may be wanting to inflate it to get more support on their side. But if that's true, I have my spreadsheet right here where we've tracked all the Israeli wars and conflicts and their casualties. And sometimes it's not really possible to get precise numbers because you have low estimates, you have high estimates. But if what we read is just true, if what we just read is true, then that's gone up quite a bit on the Palestinian side, because what I had recorded before was 7,300. Now it's at 11,000, and I guess only time will tell as they're able to, maybe get better numbers, and even after the fact, there's still maybe disagreements about how many were killed, but let's just go with the 11,000. Let's say that that's right. Let's compare that to previous conflicts. I haven't even done this yet. I haven't looked for myself. It looks like this would be the largest, with the exception of maybe the War of Independence, which the high estimate for Palestinian casualties was 13,000, but the low estimate was just 3,000. So it looks like, oh no, I missed this one right here. The first Lebanon war, the high estimate is 20,000 and the low is 5,000. So those are the only two contenders, is the first Lebanon war and the War of Independence. This is just talking about Palestinians, not Israelis. The Israeli side has been kind of hard to assess. They actually revised their estimate of like how many died on October 7th. It used to be at 1,400, but now it's down to 1,200. But you can see it still is really sizable compared to all these other wars. The only other wars that have had more, the Yom Kippur War, the War of Attrition, and the War of Independence. So anyway, by these two measures, the Israeli side and the Palestinian side, this is a major war that's taking place compared to all the other conflicts and wars. So just another reason to like really look at this, because this is not normal. What's happening right now is not normal, and it seems like, if anything, it's going to escalate. In fact, let's get back to this. Right here. This is on NBC News. Okay, Hamas says, now who knows if they really know, but I'll believe them. Hamas says Hezbollah will enter the war if Hamas is fully destroyed by Israel. Now, it's kind of been a waiting game to see what exactly Hezbollah or Iran or other groups would do. It seemed like they were basically threatening that if there was a ground invasion, that they would have to intervene. Well, the ground invasion is now taking place. They've gone deep inside Gazan territory. They have it surrounded. They are about to capture the hospital. They have the Parliament building, and like we read in that one article, they've basically reduced half of their force to inoperable, or whatever the term was that the article used. So they haven't done anything yet, and the ground invasion is well underway. But as far as like destroying all of Hamas, I don't know how long that's going to take. But there has been increased activity up here. There's been some back and forth, but it's increasing with Hezbollah. And let me show you some of the newest here. So, okay, Beirut, Lebanon. Hezbollah will fully enter into the war with Israel if Hamas is completely destroyed in the Gaza Strip, a senior Hamas official said today. And by the way, that is Israel's goal, is to completely destroy Hamas, to kill them all. Okay, quote, "Now is not the time." Ahmed Abdul Hadi, a Hamas representative in Beirut, said of Hezbollah's full involvement in the fighting across Lebanon's border with Israel. Continuing with the quote, "The red line for Hezbollah would be the full destruction of the resistance in Gaza," end quote. Hadi's comments are the first clear indication of a Hamas official of the group's expectations for their Lebanese partner's role in the ongoing fight. In several interviews, multiple Hezbollah officials have declined to offer a red line for their increased involvement, repeatedly stressing that Hezbollah will base its role on Israel's action in the Gaza Strip and on its border with Lebanon. In an interview last week, Hezbollah second-in-command Naim Qassem told NBC News that so far, Hezbollah's fighting was meant as a deterrent for the sake of lowering the pressure on Gaza. Like Hamas, Hezbollah is backed by Iran and designated as a terrorist organization by the United States and Israel. It has lost at least 73 fighters. All right. And I can't remember. I thought I had some more. Maybe not. But essentially, there's more and more talk about escalating things with Hezbollah as far as like Israel responding to their attacks. Okay. And then, you know what? Dang it. We've reached an hour, so I'm probably not going to continue this. I thought that I would need to like maybe fill up some of the time, and I thought that this would be good, but maybe I'll cover this in another video. The Hope in Christ talk by the President M. Russell Ballard. All right, well, I guess that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.